Hello, welcome to Humanities 140, Critical Thinking in the Modern Age. Today's PowerPoint will be on Chapter 10, Rival Causes. So, first of all, let us discuss the concept of disagreeing experts. An expert can present one plausible hypothesis to explain an event or a research finding, while another expert can present an equally plausible hypothesis to explain the same event or the same research finding. This is called rival causes. So, for example, if one expert on the Roman Empire says that the Roman Empire fell because there were increasingly weakened leadership, and another expert says that the Roman Empire fell because it got too big to be managed, doesn't mean that either one of them are wrong. It just means that it's a rival cause. So a rival cause is a plausible alternative explanation that can explain why a certain outcome occurred. So, for example, one of the big issues that we've talked about in the academic world is why are public schools doing so poorly on the standardized tests? Now, these are the possible causes, and they're all plausible explanations. The No Child Left Behind program, initiated in 2000, did not work. Lack of parental involvement. Lack of excellent instructors in low-income school districts. Too much multiple choice testing. Too little writing in classes, lack of resources, too many technological distractions at home, and too few technological tools in the classroom. All of these are possible causes. They do not mean that one is right and the rest are wrong. So when we think about any major scenario, we have to remember that there are usually multiple reasons, multiple causes for a scenario. Now, if you think about it, rival causes occur in every aspect of our lives. Personal relationships, world events, research studies. So, for example, why haven't you proposed to your girlfriend? Well, maybe you don't want to marry her. Maybe you don't have the money to buy her a big engagement ring. Maybe you don't want to be tied down. Maybe you can't afford a wedding. Maybe your friends don't like your girlfriend. Maybe you don't trust your girlfriend. There are many different possible reasons why a man wouldn't propose to his girlfriend, but identifying the right reason is the hard part. And oftentimes, it's not just one reason. There can be a multitude of reasons. So, again, what we have to think about here is avoiding this idea of a sweeping generalization that everything can be explained in one tidy cause. So, to identify rival causes, you can ask these sorts of questions. Can the evidence be interpreted in different ways? What else may have caused this situation? If I look at this from a different point of view, how does that change from my interpretation? So, again, in many scenarios, there is no one cause. Rather, it is usually a combination of contributory causes. And that's really the key to critical thinking, is understanding that the world is so much more complicated than one pure reason that defines everything. It is, in fact, a multitude of ideas and causations that define a situation. When people fail to consider the complexities of causes, they are committing what we call causal oversimplification. So, for example, if we say that academic performance has gone down ever since organized prayer was banned at public schools, therefore prayer should be reintroduced, resulting in school improvement. And as we've seen in the previous slide, there are many reasons why schools are doing poorly, not just one oversimplified reason. It is attractive to point to one particular reason. However, it's usually not accurate. One of the most challenging aspects of developing or comparing research studies is identifying the differences between groups. So for example, let's look at a study that says babies that are breastfed tend to have better immune systems. So we should look at the group of subjects who were assessed and asked these questions. Are the children living in the United States, or in a war-torn zone like Syria, or an area like the Ukraine? Do the mothers work? Are they stay-at-home moms? What is the income level of the families? What is the political situation in the country in which they live? So for example, in Sweden, women get 6 months off after they give birth, so it's far easier to breastfeed versus in the United States, where most women get about 4 to 6 weeks off if they're lucky. So it's a little more challenging. Are women given support by their healthcare providers and community to breastfeed in public? How much time does the mother get from her job to care for her child? And are vaccinations available at a low cost? Because they too will help with the immune system. So when we're looking at a study, what we really have to identify are the groups that are being studied, because ultimately the type of people being studied often lead to very skewed results. Experts strive to minimize rival causes by using the randomized experimental design. In this process, the researcher will use two groups that are identical in demographic distribution. So for example, if in a pharmaceutical drug trial, the researchers may use only Hispanic men who are in their 30s, who also work in construction and are having heart problems. So this very, very specific group is assessing issues for a very specific group. On the other hand, if you're looking at an overall all men in the United States, then you would have a much different demographic group being assessed. So let's talk about the word correlation. Correlation is a technique for analyzing patterns of association or connection between pairs of variables such as income and education. When you see a grouping like this one on the left, this is a positive correlation. The middle one is a negative correlation. Notice that the axis line is going downwards. And then over here with this scattered group of dots, there is no correlation. Now, what this means when a negative correlation does not necessarily mean that there is any negativity. It just means that, for example, the better you eat, the less you weigh. Or the better you eat, over here with positive correlation, the more energy you have. A lot of people get the concept of causation confused with correlation, and we've talked about this already in this class, but just to emphasize this, just because two concepts show similar trends, it does not mean that Miss America is murdering people with steam. So if you look at this chart below, what you'll see is the age of Miss America correlating with murders by steam, hot vapor, and hot objects. And you'll see that this graph, it's crazy accurate in terms of the age of Miss America and how many people are getting killed with steam, hot vapor, and objects. And these are some more causation versus correlation examples that are kind of ridiculous. So on the left, we have Internet Explorer versus the murder rate. And what you'll see is the less people who use Internet Explorer, the less people who are murdered. And I can pretty much guarantee that Microsoft is not causing people to murder less by getting rid of Internet Explorer. But it just goes to show you that if you know how to use statistics, you can pretty much fake any correlation. And then over here on the right hand side, you have autism in the purple and organic food sales in pink. And again, you see this correlation, this positive correlation that shows that the rise in organic food sales correlates to autism, which of course means that it doesn't necessarily cause autism. Another element in the correlation causation mistake is this concept of neglect of common cause. So let's look at an example first. In the summertime, both the amount of ice cream eaten and the number of murders committed increase. So does that mean that ice cream causes people to murder? I don't think so. Rather, it is the hot weather that makes people eat ice cream, and is also the hot weather that gets people irritated and fighting with one another, which eventually leads to murders. So this neglect of common cause is defined as the failure to recognize that two events may be related because of the effects of a third factor they have in common. And that is a very important aspect here. You have to look for the underlying cause, not just the correlative idea that two things happen around the same time. Another element in terms of causation is the concept of after versus because. It is important to keep in mind that just because something happens after an event, it doesn't mean that the issues are related. So for example, you're walking home from an interview and you find a $10 bill on the street. Later that day, you get a call from an employer who offers you the job. Now, you might think it's your lucky day, but probably not. The two events are not related. That's just the way things go sometimes, and we call that a coincidence, or a coinky-dink if you're at my house. So when we are thinking about the after and the because, we as humans love this idea of luck, of happenstance, of coincidences, and we have to be very mindful that causation is not always part and parcel of that idea of coincidence. This is one of those little minion guys over here. I love what he says. Whenever I'm sad, you're there. Whenever I'm having problems, you are always there. Whenever my life seems out of control, you are always there. Let's face it, you are bad luck. Again, we wouldn't want to say this to our BFF because ultimately they're the ones who are there for us when we are miserable. So finally, we're going to look at how to assess rival causes, because ultimately the causation, not all causes are created equal. Some causes are more important than others. So we have to ask these questions. Which causes are logical? Which ones make the most sense? Are they consistent? Have they explained or predicted other situations successfully? Is it supported by information that is generally accepted as true? Is there little or no information contradicting the causes? Is it comprehensive in its explanation? Does this cause explain things better than any other? So, one of the big simplifications in history is the cause of World War I, or known as the Great War, before World War II happened. But, pretty much people point to the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand as the reason or the cause of World War I. It is so much more complicated. You have the Russians had their special interest. The Germans and Austrians had their special interest. The Slavic countries had their special interests. You had the French and the English having their special interests. All of these groups had their special interests. So one assassination is not the only cause, but it is the cause that we can point to as the tinderbox that blew up and caused everything else to happen. So that's it for today's presentation. If you have any questions, please email or text message me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.